Hello, hello, Miss Whitehead. It is currently 12:35 a.m. and this is my fifth attempt at this video. I want you to know it's a lot harder than it looks. So we're going to start off with our main script here. We're going to hop right on into it. The main script is going to do a couple of things. It's going to first ask you if you know anything about basketball or not. If you do not, it is going to display this information here so that you have a decent starting point. If you do know what you're talking about, then you're going to enter all this information yourself. We're going to give you a couple options for how you want to start. You can either choose player, team, or stat, which is just a little bit lower. There it is. So let's go ahead and open up our command window so we can see what we're about to do here. If I run this main script, it's going to show me, whoops, don't count that towards my time, please. We have general basketball knowledge. So like I said, if we said no, it was just going to show that little array as well as this menu, and then we could figure out stuff from there. So I just decided to ignore it and kind of go straight into this. So first we're going to enter a player name. I do want to point out that my function does do something that for some reason it does not do here. So let's enter a player name of Kevin. That's not how you spell that. There you go. Now I entered Kevin Durant's name. It's going to show me a bunch of graphs that have Kevin Durant's information on it. Let's blow this up. Our functions show that our years axis does go from 2008 to 2017. Those are the years that we had. So I had to set that for all of these graphs. We do have a title for the player name. Our axes are labeled for each specific stat that we're using. Excuse me very much. I'm very sorry. We do have one pie chart over here, and then the rest of these are all line graphs, as you can see. So we got two different kinds of graphs. Let's go ahead and X out of that. So that was fun because I had to set different limits and stuff for all the graphs and do a nice little subplot. I'm actually going to go over here and explain that part to you real fast. This is that graphing function that I just showed you. Like I said, I set the year as our x-axis, one could say, and that way it was plot year versus stat. The stat is going to be chosen up here. That stat is, what would have been on the x-axis, or excuse me, on the y-axis, and that's what our label is. So games, effective field goal percentage, stuff like that. So that's what's going to be on that left axis. Now, this is the function that was also made to speak to another function. So this little player input here is actually going to be pulled from this function here. So when I go over here, I've got function stat equals player. Player is my input. So when I try to run this one, I should be able to, let's try it real fast. And then we're going to hop on back to that main script pretty soon. I just want to show you guys something. Actually, no, we'll do this in a second. Let's go back to this main script and run it. Would you like to return to main menu? Yes, I would. Every time you pull up some information, it's going to ask you if you want to return to the main menu. Next up, we got our team. So this one is pretty good. We're going to start by entering Pistons. After it asks us this, it's going to ask us to enter a high year and a low year. Now, if we were to just enter one season, 2016 or 2017, for example, we'll just pull up an array of that season. But I like to show off, so we are going to type in all the seasons. And that means now we have an array of the Pistons with every player they had, as well as the season they played, and the data or the stats presented for that season. So this is very useful, I think. This is probably one of our better functions. Nice job to Mr. Jared for writing this one, Jared Crane. Let's do, yes, we want to go back to our menu. Now, those are our only two options there. Next up, we're going to go to stat. Stat is, would you like to return to the main menu? Or, sorry. It's going to tell us all these. So these are our options. See, your choice for which stats you can search for are games, effective field goal percentage, etc., etc. Now, everything in the parentheses is going to be what you need to enter here. So enter which stat you want to search. Let's go with triple doubles. That's capital TD right there. Would you like to organize the data? Obviously, we aren't slobs. So now it's asking us a couple more questions. We have, would you like to find an average? Do you want the players that are over under a certain number, or do you want the highest and lowest value of your stat? Now, the last 5 times I tried this video, this is usually what kills my time, so we're going to keep it short. So let's find the average for TD. Let's find average NBA average first. So that's 0.098. Let's go back. Stat. TD. Yes. 1. And now we want a player average. What player do we want the average of? Let's go with Russell Westbrook. What do you know? That guy has 8.3 average triple doubles in a season. He is actually currently the record holder for the number of triple doubles in a season. I didn't know that until I did this project. Don't worry, I learned a little more about MATLAB too. So now we're going to do this one more time. Let's do TD again. Yes, this time we're going to go with the second option. So I want to know how many players have over or under a certain number that is associated with this stat. So what number we're going to go with. Russell had 8.9 on average, so let's see who can beat that. Let's see who had more than 9 triple-doubles in a given season. Would you like to search for higher or lower? We want higher, for sure. Now it's going to give me a table, and that table is going to show me the exact number of players that had more than 9 triple-doubles in a season, as well as what season they played. So it looks like Russell Westbrook is killing it. Ever since he started, 14, 15, 16, he's got 12, 18, 42. He's only getting better and better. I'm excited to see what he does this season. I'll put my hood up. It's super cold. We don't have heat in the house. So this table is going to show you the column 1, their name, column 2, the year they played, column 3, the number of triple doubles they got in that season. Let's go back to our menu. PD again. Now we want to do that third option. Yes. So now we want the highest and lowest value of your stat. Now, from what we saw earlier, it should have been Russell Westbrook. So let's go ahead and just pick 3. Make sure that holds true. Would you like to find the highest or the lowest value? And it is. It is indeed Russell Westbrook. So Russell Westbrook has the highest number of triple doubles in the NBA in the last 10 years. He had 42, and this was accomplished by Russell Westbrook. So we have a nice little F print F statement that's going to give you a good summation of what you were asking. Now we've gone over all those. Let's kind of go into each individual function here. The first one I'm going to get into is our team function. So when we entered by team, this is the function that was occurring. This shows basically your Z is going to be your team name input. P1 is the high year. P2 is the low year. We use that if-else statement first to determine, based on the year you chose, what is going to be our position in our data set that we are going to use. So if it's 2008 to 2009, you should be using rows 4396 to 3952, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera for the rest of it. Okay, so once we have our high and low years and our position has been established, now we can start creating a cell, kind of like what you saw when that specific season was brought up. So how this is going to work is basically we're going to enter in that team name. It's going to do a string compare of all the rows that were brought up by the high-low year. So it's going to do a string compare of all those rows to the team name that you entered. If that is true, which is shown down here somewhere, he wrote so much code, and honestly, I don't want to sort through it all. It's going to take too much time. So once that gets established, our team name, our high year, low year, it runs that string comparison down all the rows. If it holds true, then it is going to show you that cell array, okay? And then it's going to add one row each time that comparison is true. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now we have our stat function. This is our function that shows that when we were choosing all of our stats, this is what we were using. And it does coincide with this one. I'll show you that one in a second. I wonder why I have nothing in my workspace. You notice that? I have nothing. Why? All right, anyway, sorry. So we have chosen, cat, and more or less. So chosen is going to be the stat that you choose. Cat is going to be higher or lower. Or excuse me, that's the over-under. And then more or less is what we were doing earlier. Do you want the highest number or the lowest number? So we use some if-else statements here again, just to say if you inputted less, then you are going to be looking for this function, your chosen stat, row I, column 1, should be less than cat. And same thing over here, but more than cat. And then let's go over here real fast to kind of see how this one associates with that. This is basically all of the writing we had to do. for that function. So for our, this is the part that asks you what kind of stat are you going to be using, gives you the information on how you're going to enter it, and then he just kind of goes in with a bunch of different text here. So the nice thing is he uses a while statement here, that while that x does not equal 1 and x starts at 0, so it allows this, like he said, it allows the while loop to continue until they put in something that we're looking for. If they don't put in something they're looking for, it's going to give them a little error message right here, invalid entry, please use the recommended abbreviation. Now if they do use the recommended abbreviation, we use a switch case, so they've entered their input and now we are going to choose a case based on that input. And once that case is chosen, x is now equal to 1, and that's going to cut that loop. Okay, so whatever we use for chosen, it is going to use all the rows of that coinciding column. Okay, now just a disclaimer, even though this says column 1 for NBA data, when he uploaded this, he actually only uploaded the first 5 through however many columns that we had, or else it would have used text data and categorical data. So we had to upload that a little differently for each of our functions. Excuse me. So here we have my player function. Let's try and see if this boy works. Oops. So exit program. There we go. There we go. And all of our workspaces variables are back. So now we have my player function. What this does is it's going to input a player name, and then we're going to string compare all of the players in our first column with that inputted player name. And if it's true, then we're going to add to this counter. And that counter is going to tell us what position we want for our overall stat block. And then that is going to be related to our NBA data. So if I were to just kind of go over this real fast, I just want to show you what I'm talking about because I feel like I can show you better than I can talk about it. Now, player already has something, so we're going to stick with that, Kevin Durant. And it should show me an array here of all of his stats for the last few years. So the one thing I was missing from this was an fprintf statement that I kind of considered, but I didn't really have time to put it in. So what this is his most recent year, and this was 2008 to 2009. It does show every year all of his stats going across the board. So that's really helpful, and that is what we are using. This is also what we're using for those graphs. So when you saw those graphs earlier, this is how we were determining the scale. This is how we were determining what those are going to look like and what they're going to use. So when I bring it over here, now we are got 2 different inputs, and they're both from my function. We have stat and we have player. So we want to graph those 2 things together. So every time we're going to plot year, which is set as a vector, 2008 to 2017, versus our stat, which was determined in that previous function. And then we are going to use the column, the proper column of that stat block, to make sure that we are using, the column that we want. We don't want to be graphing total field goal percentage in our games plot, right? So the subplots, make sure that all of these are going to show up on the same place. I use X label and Y label, as well as XLim to make sure. I guess that was actually not necessary. I think I use this XLim because we were having trouble getting our X-axis to stay at 2008 to 2017. So that was our little solution to that. All right, looks like that's pretty much everything. Hopefully I answered a lot of your questions. I think this project was very, very helpful for my understanding of MATLAB. It definitely helped me with the team. They were a big part of that and making sure that I understood what I was doing with these while loops, with these counters. The counters was the big thing. I had a huge problem with counters up until they helped me. So anyway, I've droned down long enough. I'm sure I'm way over time. So thank you for your time, Ms. Whitehead. I'm sure I failed your class, so I'll probably see you next semester. Have a good one.